So we all know dogma is bad, but it's probably not for the reason you think. Because when we're presented with dogma or criticisms of dogma, the main focus is usually on how dogma gets things wrong. And, obviously that's true. If you have a dogmatic position, you're going to miss truth, things like that. You'll be blind to evidence that might contradict your positions, things like that. But here's the thing. Everybody does that. Every position does that. And not just dogmatic ones. Even if you're exercising all good faith, even if you're doing your best and you're a diligent truth seeker, you just miss the point sometimes. And it's not because you're being dogmatic. It's like you're just mortal. And I don't think it's fair to to describe every single time a position or person misses truth as being dogmatic. Because this is just part of the human experience, is to mess up. And to not figure things out. So what is the problem with dogma if it's not a capacity for error? Because there's always a capacity for error, and dogma might increase that capacity for error, but even then that's not necessarily clear. Because there may even be some very high quality dogmas that get most things right. And certainly I would expect some dogmas would at least have a higher degree of accuracy than an uninformed position or even other informed positions. So it's like you could even have a dogma that is more accurate than the default position or other positions that people are taking. So if accuracy isn't like a strong grounds to criticize dogma, this is really what I think is the problem with dogma. The problem with dogma isn't that it makes mistakes. It's that as dogma becomes established, everyone starts making the same mistakes. That's an issue with dogma that doesn't exist with the general search for truth and the general human capacity for error, because everybody makes mistakes. But typically speaking, those mistakes don't naturally align in the same pattern. You don't have 500 people making the exact same mistake, missing the exact same things. You may have a lot of people doing it, but there's variation. When you've got a dogmatic system, you have the same mistakes made, and when that interacts with people, that means that the same people are negatively affected or beneficially affected by the mistakes each time. So if somebody is discriminated against by a dogmatic system, the difference is that they constantly get re-victimized, or they suffer from the dogmatic system time after time after time. Whereas somebody in a non-dogmatic system, they'll get discriminated against occasionally, and a non-dogmatic system will discriminate against many different people, but it will be less severe. It won't compound on itself automatically in the same way that in a dogmatic system it will. So it's really this. So I think this really is the problem with dogma, is the compounding of errors that the creators and practitioners of dogma participate in, because everyone propagates errors. We all do it. But when we don't have a unifying dogma, those errors are undirected. Our errors affect different people. They come up in different circumstances and are caused by different reasons. And in some ways, you can almost hope that, at least to some degree, those errors are going to wash out. Because sometimes you'll be the subject of beneficial discrimination, sometimes you'll be the subject of harmful discrimination. But when they're undirected, or if there's at least a degree of randomness to it, you could actually expect, it's a lot less likely for somebody to become a dramatic victim or a severely repeat victim of the system, unless there's just a high rate of error overall. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing to note about dogma. Because even one can say what one will about a non-dogmatic system and whether it'll be good or bad or whatnot. But I do think we need to be very conscious about this alignment of errors, and how errors can build up over time and cause things like when there's too much concert, you can cause these errors to build up over time, but especially against specific people. So specific people will be the subject of the errors repeatedly rather than sporadically. because it's a lot harder to live as a person if things are just going not your way every single time instead of sometimes. Because things go wrong. Again, things go wrong for all of us. But it's always a significant advantage, and it's something we need to strive for, is to make sure that the same people don't keep getting hurt. We can all heal. We can all handle some degree of hurt in this world. What is really difficult is when somebody starts ending up getting the hurt every time, so to speak. So we should really always be looking for ways to mitigate that and prevent that from happening. And I would just point to examples, for instance, of the school system where, like if a kid doesn't fit in a certain way in the classroom at kindergarten, that's going to cause problems. But the thing is like the things that cause problems at kindergarten level are typically going to continue causing problems throughout the schooling process. So even though it wouldn't be necessarily like, it would be sad, but it wouldn't be like life ending if a child doesn't have a good kindergarten experience. But if the same thing that caused them to have a bad kindergarten experience causes them to have a bad first grade experience, and then a bad second grade experience, and then a bad third grade experience, you can see how that's going to be different for that kid. And then you also factor in how having a bad kindergarten experience makes it harder to have a good first grade experience, and then having a bad first grade experience that makes it harder to have a bad second grade experience. And you just kind of get this cascading effect, compounding effect, where it just builds on itself in a really nasty way. So I think when it comes to criticizing dogma and watching out for it, and especially making decisions of societal formation, I think we need to be very careful about that. So that's dogma for you. And hope you all take care and see y'all on the flip side. Au revoir.